Solving right triangles. Solving a triangle means finding all unknown sides and any unknown angles. And in this video, I will show you how to do that. In problem number 1, we need to find the measure of angle x in two different ways. Now, if you're given two angles in a triangle, 90, 30.7, you can use the fact that the sum of all the angles in a triangle must be 180 degrees. So if you start with 180 degrees and you subtract the two angles that you know, so 180 minus 90, okay, notice that that's 90. So look, that means there are 90 degrees left for the other two angles. So really, from now on, I'm going to think of it as just subtracting from 90. Okay, it's because now if I subtract, if I take 90 minus 30.7, then that's going to be the missing angle. So regardless of whether you think of it as starting from 180 degrees and subtracting 90 and then subtracting 30.7, you get 59.3. Or if you just recognize that the two acute angles in a right triangle have to add up to 90, because you already have 90, so you can just do 90 minus 30.7. So from now on, you won't see me do 180. When I see the two angles, I will just subtract the known angle from 90, and that will give me the missing angle. Now, the other method is to use the two sides that we're given. All right, we're given this 19 and the 32. From the perspective of the angle that we want to find, these sides are opposite, the opposite leg, and the adjacent leg. So which trig function is that? Opposite, adjacent, that's the tangent function. So we know that we're going to use the tangent function, so we will say tangent of the unknown angle is equal to opposite over adjacent. So then the angle will equal the inverse tangent of 32 over 19. And this is something you can just put in your calculator. For inverse tangent, you'll have to hit second tangent and then 32 over 19. So that is 59.3, which is what we got by the other method. For problem number 2, we are to find the value of y in two different ways. Okay, so I guess we got to look back at this picture again and see what's up. Let me erase my markings. So one way to find the value of y is to use the Pythagorean Theorem. We have two sides of the right triangle given, and we're missing the third side. The missing side is the hypotenuse. So when you say a squared plus b squared equals c squared, in this case it will be 19 squared plus 32 squared equals y squared. So 19 squared is 361, and 32 squared is 1024. If I add those up, I get 1385. To get y by itself, I need to take the square root of 1385, and that will give me y. So that turns out to be 37.2. All right, if we round to one decimal place. Okay, so that's one way to find y. Now, the other method is to use trigonometry, all right, tangent, sine, and cosine. So let's look back and see. Okay, let's use the angle that we were given from the start. So we will use this angle. Okay, now I want to find this side. So I can really pick either one of these other in order to solve this problem. I'm not going to use them both. I just need to pick one. Okay, and so it really just doesn't even matter. So let's say if I pick the 32. In that case, so this is the adjacent leg because it's right next to the angle. This, of course, is the hypotenuse. So adjacent and hypotenuse, that is the cosine function, adjacent over hypotenuse. So I could solve this using the cosine function. So I could say cosine of 30.7, okay, is equal to 32 over y, adjacent over hypotenuse. If I wanted to solve this, when you have a variable in the denominator, you can swap these. So that's going to give you y is equal to 32 over cosine 30.7. And then you can just put this in your calculator. And that's 37.2. Which of course is the same thing that we got when we did it the other way. All right, notice that I could just as easily have picked the other side. So instead of using the 32, if I wanted to, I could have picked the 19, which is the opposite leg. In that case, since I have opposite and hypotenuse, that would be the sine function. So I would do sine of 30.7 is equal to 19 over y. And I would do the switcheroo. Now I would have 19 over sine 30.7. And if you put that in your calculator, you're going to get the same answer we got before. Okay? All right, looks like we get to move on to another picture. All right, these triangles are not to scale, etc. All right, 3 decimal places. Okay, so we need to find the measure of angle S, for example. So let's start with that. If I want to find the measure of angle S, all right, that's an unknown. I need 2 things that I do know. Well, okay, you know what? We're given the other angle, so I don't need anything else. I have this 34, so I can just do, all right, the measure of angle S is going to be 90 minus 34. All right, just subtract from 90. And that is 56 degrees. Okay. Now, we're supposed to find side ST. So let me erase this little mark. I think I'll even change colors. All right, let's go to this. So we're supposed to find side ST, so I'm just going to put a little X right here. I'm given the 34 and I'm given the 16 and I'm trying to find X. From the perspective of the 34, are either one of these the hypotenuse? Yeah, this is the hypotenuse no matter what. Now this X is the opposite leg, right? Because it's across from the 34. So we have opposite and hypotenuse. Which trig function is that? That's the sine function. So that tells me to do sine of 34 is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, x over 16. Now I could multiply both sides by 16. That will get x by itself. And I can put this in my calculator as 16 sine 34. So that is 8.947. Okay? Now, how about TU? All right, I'm going to start over a little bit. I think I'll even change colors. So if I want to find TU, you know what? Let me use a different variable. I'm going to call it Y this time. All right, so this is TU. And again, I have the 16 and the 34 to work with. The 16 is still the hypotenuse, but the Y is now the adjacent leg, because adjacent means right next to. So, adjacent and hypotenuse, you say. That's the cosine function, adjacent over hypotenuse. So I will say the cosine of 34 is equal to the adjacent leg over the hypotenuse. Again, if I want to get that y by itself, I can just multiply by the denominator, multiply by 16 on both sides. So 16 cosine 34, I can just put that in my calculator. $13.265. Got to round up. 5 or higher, you got to round up. So 13.265. Okay, so that's TU. All right, that's it. Those are the only things that we needed to find. So notice that solving a triangle means finding all sides and all angles. So we have the 3 given values already filled in. But now we found the 3 missing values. So there will always be 6 values total. And you're going to be given 3 and you have to find the other 3. And that's what it means to solve a triangle. Okay, let's do the same thing again. Well, I'm given these 2 sides. So what I want to do is use the Pythagorean theorem to find the hypotenuse. Okay, well, you know what, maybe I'll go in order. So first we are asked to find angle S, which is right here. And we're given this 12, which is the adjacent leg. And we're given this 19, which is the opposite leg. So opposite and adjacent. Opposite means across from, and adjacent means right next to. So opposite, adjacent. So what function is that? That's the tangent function, opposite over adjacent. That's why I know to do tangent of S, okay, the tangent of the missing angle is going to equal the opposite over the adjacent. Now, if you want to find the missing angle, you need to do the inverse tangent of 19/12. And this is something that you can just put in your calculator. So second tangent 19/12. Okay, so that's 57.724. Okay, let's move on to finding angle U. Now, if I want to find angle U, I could do the tangent function again, and 12 would be opposite and 19 would be adjacent. If I'm feeling pretty confident about my angle S, then I might just subtract from 90. Okay, so if I do, let me change colors. So angle U should equal 90 minus 57.724. Okay, so that's 32.276. All right, and that's the same thing we would get if I did the tangent function all over again. So that just leaves side US. Okay, so for side US, we should just do the Pythagorean theorem. All right, if we have two sides of a right triangle, you can always find the third side by doing leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. So that's 12 squared plus 19 squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared. So that's 144 plus 361. And so that's 505 is equal to hypotenuse squared. So the hypotenuse should equal the square root of 505. And that turns out to be 22.472. Number 5, let's just do the same thing one more again. So first we need to find angle S. So this is angle S right here. Now I've got these two numbers given. The 26 is the hypotenuse and the 24 is the opposite leg. All right, opposite means across from. So opposite and hypotenuse, that's the sine function. So that means I will do the sine of angle S is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So if I want the angle, I need to do the inverse sine of 24 over 26. And that you can just put in your calculator. $67.380. Okay, now let's find angle U. Now I could find angle U by doing adjacent over hypotenuse. I could do the cosine. But if I'm feeling very confident about angle S, I could just subtract from 90. Okay, so I might say, as I change colors, that angle U should equal 90 minus 67.380. So 22.62. Okay, that just leaves side ST. All right, let's call this X. And let's see. Oh, well, we have two sides of the right triangle given. To find the third side, we can do the Pythagorean theorem, which says that if you have a right triangle, leg squared plus leg squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared. So that's x squared plus 576 equals 676. If you subtract 576 from both sides, that gives you x squared is equal to 100. And then, of course, x will equal the square root of 100. So x will equal 10. And that's it. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Go ahead and click here in the red apple to watch the next video. Click in the green apple to subscribe, or click the yellow apple for the full playlist.